Hey, this is Notser, and today we're taking a look at the Mainz. This is the premium tier 8 German light cruiser, and this is a rarity at this tier. We have not seen a German light cruiser at tier 8 yet. We've seen the Königsberg, the Nuremberg, and what that can bring to the table. But we haven't seen a dedicated tier 8 or higher, premium or non-premium. Well, this will be the first one. So the traits are very interesting. Obviously, my build's on the screen. You'll note that I'm not taking IFHE, radio location, or fire prevention. And why am I not taking IFHE if these are light cruiser guns? Well, we're taking a trait that is long endearing of the German cruiser line. Instead of 1/6 HE penetration, we are calculating our gun caliber divided by 4, which brings us to a HE penetration that is higher than 32 millimeters by default. This is the most important threshold that light cruisers are always going for, and what the reason they use IFHE for. But with the Mainz, don't really need IFHE, if I'm being honest. I've got more than enough penetration. I did the calculations. I've got about 37 millimeters of penetration without IFHE. With IFHE, I would have around 48 millimeters of penetration. Now, unfortunately, 48 doesn't really cross as many thresholds as 50 would. Notable thresholds that you would cross: the American battleship deck. Oh man, have I heard that one before? No, I can't. I don't really recognize that as a threshold. Yeah, of course, this is related to like 3 years ago. But 38 American deck armor. You can also cross 40, which would be, I think, the tier 8 Soviet, 40 millimeters on the Vladivostok, and then 45 for the Lenin. But outside of those ships, it's not really a noticeable threshold. Certainly not 4 points noticeable. 4 points is a really big deal to invest. And on top of the penetration not being particularly impressive what thresholds will cross with IFHE, it also reduces an already pathetic fire chance even lower. I mean, I think the base fire chance is like 7 or 8%, and that's pretty low. The HE shells on this, not very impressive. You know, oh, well, it's a light cruiser, IFHE, spam HE, right? That's all you do. Yeah, if you spam it, the number's going to be kind of small, and it's not going to look much better. And what's the trade-off? You know, why is high explosive so ineffective when you compare it to something like the Mogami and the Kutuzov, where I think the Mogami and the Kutuzov have 10, 11% base demolition chance? I think the biggest culprit here is that Wargaming is trying to create that flavor of the Germans. They have high pen, low HE damage, low fire chance. That's just what Germans do. That's what they've done with the heavy cruiser line in the past, so obviously the light cruiser would carry it. And then the AP shell is actually very effective. It does an astronomical amount of damage, but AP shells on light cruisers, they're kind of weak. Very easy for players to angle and have their armor absorb the shot. The player basically has to be perfectly broadside to be punished by light cruiser guns with AP, and that doesn't happen that frequently. The majority of light cruisers are making their damage by spamming high explosive on cooldown. Now, if you spam high explosive on cooldown, you've got to improve it. Demolition Expert, the signal flags, otherwise the fire chance just isn't going to be there. And it's even worse if you were to invest in IFHE. 8% base, remember IFHE takes 3% of that away, unless of course you have a small caliber gun, which this doesn't qualify as. So we would drop our fire chance to 5%. We could increase it back up to 7%, and then 8%, including the signal flags. So 2% from Demolition Expert, 1% from signal flags. But 8% is the maximum penetration with the exact same build as the Kutuzov, which has like 11 or 12%. The Mogami, which has 11% fire chance. 8% is nothing. It's a joke. And it's even worse if you were to try and not leverage that. And, you know, you're trying to min-max your income for signal flags and all that stuff. You've got to invest in it. Otherwise, it's just going to remain crappy. So all in all, the build feels really awkward. And honestly, I think it feels really awkward because there isn't really a valid skill to take unless you're absorbing damage. Alternative to IFHE. We've got concealment. Obviously, concealment's great. You could say, oh, well, you could go radiolocation. Now, look at how little damage we do to the Yue Yang when the shells actually make contact. It's impressive that we're only doing 2,300 and 2,500 when a significant amount of shells are making direct contact. That's the German HE weakness. But yeah, we don't need IFHE. We already have that pin baked into the shell. What else are we going to spend the 4 points on? Fire prevention? I mean, fire prevention's okay, but it's a cruiser. It's got really fast recharge on its damage control, and the dot itself doesn't stay too long. We could also go radiolocation, right? Radiolocation, very helpful for knowing the general direction of the closest target, but you don't really have big playmaking skills that you could leverage with radiolocation, you know, like radar or speed boost to get in and just force them to be spotted. Main battery reload is another great tool to use in concert with radar. You know, pretty much what you get here is your typical Tier 8 German cruiser, no heal, no range extension whatsoever. Can't possibly fathom equipping a scout aircraft to this. It's not even possible, but it's not an option. Why isn't it an option? Yeah, sure, you play very well at Tier 8, but Tier 10, you can get raffle stomped. And the light cruiser effect of it, I like the faster rate of fire. I like that I don't need IFHE. What I hate is the ineffective high explosive, the low fire chance, and the AP shell, which does massive amount of damage, but again, it's a small gun caliber. And because of that, its AP is more challenging to use. The target needs to be more perfectly broadside. It has to enter in a very specific location. Otherwise, it might overpin, or it might ricochet. You know? It's just the case of a small gun caliber, regardless of whether it's German or not. But on top of that, you've got an HE shell, which gives up fire chance and HE alpha for pin. I'll tell you what, I would not like to give up any of those traits for pin, because I can get it so cheaply through the commander tree. And that's the real kicker here. The one trait that the Germans do so much better than everyone else is the easiest to include in their build. And I look at the mines and I go, man, I don't need to get IFHE. There's so many other possibilities. Wait, there actually isn't so many other possibilities? Yeah, actually, in fact, there's no other possibilities. And let's be real, it doesn't have the armor or the heals to be tanky. So it has mediocre guns, mediocre armor, mediocre everything. Yeah. So, yeah, work in progress, review, impression on this ship. Needs to go back to the drawing board. I need a reason for this to exist. I need a reason for wanting it. I don't see either. And until I see that, we're just treading water, because we're not actually doing anything. And that's the way I feel. If this version goes in the game right now, there is literally no reason to have it, unless you want to collect a weird ship. There are light cruisers that do it better and cheaper and for free, and are more unique too. More team-oriented. I mean, everything. And the traits that this is supposed to be superior at, rate of fire and survivability, are a joke. So if Wargaming could just be real with themselves and look at the German cruiser line and say, yeah, this trait is kind of replaced because it's so easy to obtain with IFHE. Let's give them something that they can really have as a trait worth holding over others. And to me, the best example of that, give them access to heal. You give them access to heal, it keeps in the same design space as what they've established with the Rune and the Hindenburg, and it immediately makes this line more attractive. Now we're going to get the British heavy cruisers that are going to get a heal, but they do it in a different way. They are more active maneuvering. They have really high deck armor, whereas the German cruiser line basically has a very tough citadel to reach. I think both of them can exist, and they both do slightly different things. And I think that would be interesting, you know? So for me, it's like, can we really just address the fact that we don't really have that tanky survivability-driven cruiser line in the game? Even though we're supposed to, even though the Germans are, we don't get to have that kind of experience, and we certainly don't have it on the Mainz. And if there is no other inclination that we don't have it, the fact that they direct nerfed the bow and stern armor from 27 to 25 because the light cruiser tells you everything you need to know. The description does not match the gameplay. And if the description does not match the gameplay, I wouldn't recommend it. Because that would mean that there is a disconnect between what's actually in the game and what is being advertised. And that's exactly what it feels like. I do not feel like this is a heavy cruiser survivability with light cruiser guns. Sort of the inverse of the Wichita. It's not here. I would love for it to be here. I'm excited to play that, but it's not here. Now we'll see if something changes from the work in progress that has been left for the ship, but as of right now, it's a hipper with light cruiser guns, and German light cruiser guns are very mediocre because of all the traits that I've talked about that they had to sacrifice. I just wish that the Germans as a whole had a valid playstyle. You know, if you wanted to be the last surviving cruiser, you would go over to the Germans, right? Supposedly. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. So for me, the Mainz, give it heal, buff the reload, and we'll be much closer to what was originally described in the ship description. As this game went, well, we played very well, and we got into a position where we could leverage our torpedoes. So it was fun either way, regardless of the ship's power. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to check out more of my content, you can click the most recent or the most relevant uploads. You could also choose to subscribe to my channel. We do daily World of Warship videos, first impression, how-to, news, and review related. My North American recruit invite is on the screen. You can take advantage of that. I stream at twitch.tv/Notser. Thank you, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.